Good morning. Those of you who listen to Jessica Valenti, who follow her on here and read her newsletter, Abortion Every Day, and if you've been following her a long time, you know about this, but I'm going to tell you a very scary story about a government agency right now. When I was in law school, I was still doing some reproductive rights activism work, and I was with my feminist group at a hearing up in Bethesda. An FDA hearing, it was about the morning after pill. You know how the morning after pill in many states is over the counter? A woman in my feminist group that I was working with at the time, she's responsible for that. I'll let Google tell you. Hey Google, who sued in New York State over morning after pill over the counter?
On the website cbsnews.com, they say, an advocate for girls' and women's reproductive rights, Annie Tumino, the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit demanding broader access to the pill, reacted to the judge's memo with cautious optimism.
Annie Tumino, that was her name. The Center for Reproductive Rights also sued, and there was another woman in Minnesota that sued because she wanted morning after pill over the counter, and the pharmacist, because of their, quote, religious beliefs, wouldn't let her have it. This is my Thrive Cosmetics mascara, by the way. I'm not doing too much with shadow today. I just did some foundation, concealer on my eyelid, and then my black Rare Beauty liquid liner. So as part of that whole campaign, I went up to this hearing, and I wasn't one of the people testifying. This is milk primer. I wasn't one of the people testifying, but I was just there in solidarity while I think it was Annie who was making a statement then. So I'm sitting there, and before the testimony part, there were doctors talking about how the morning after pill worked or how it's supposed to work. So they're going on about the definition of pregnancy. This is cheap, I know, but my skin is really dry today, and this serum has hyaluronic acid in it, and I just can't bring myself to put regular foundation on. I need something a little more moisturizing. Even with my humidifier going last night, the dry skin was epic with the heat on. So the doctor is talking about pregnancy, and they're like, well, no, this is an abortifacient. The conservative doctors, at the time there were 3 conservative doctors on the reproductive drugs panel appointed by George W. Bush, of course. And the 3 doctors and the remaining doctors who were, normal, couldn't agree on the definition of pregnancy. Yeah, the normal doctors were like, well, at that point, a woman is not pregnant yet. And they're like, no. Life begins at conception. This drug is an abortifacient. And the real doctors are like, no. A woman is not pregnant until that fertilized egg latches on to the uterine wall. And I'm sitting there flabbergasted, like, I learned this in 7th grade science. And these are OBGYNs on this panel who will not acquiesce to the medical definition of pregnancy. It was insane. So I called my dad, who's now a retired doctor. He was just retired at the time. He's a retired physician. And I'm like, Dad, I can't believe it. Can you believe this? And he's like, that's insane. I don't know what level of political influence those doctors have, but every doctor knows that the definition of pregnancy you're talking about and those other 7 doctors or whatever we're talking about is absolutely correct. I don't know where the hell these people are getting that from. But that was a seminal moment for me in my reproductive rights activism and just my understanding in general of the conservatives' plot in limiting the reproductive rights and freedoms of women. The morning after pill is very simple. It's just a larger mega dose of the regular birth control pill. And what birth control pills do, they do a couple of things. Primarily, they prevent ovulation. They also thicken the mucus in the cervix to make it more difficult for sperm to get by and swim and reach the egg, which isn't even there if you've been taking the pill, right? So it's the same medication that had been on the market for, 40 years at that point. It was just a larger dose of it. Birth control pills are synthetic versions of progesterone and a combination of, like, I think estradiol and progesterone, but they basically trick your body into thinking it's already pregnant. So while you can still have periods sometimes, some people don't have periods, or they have lighter periods, or they have periods every other month, but it prevents ovulation and creates an environment that is not conducive to fertilization, because your body thinks, oh, if I'm already pregnant, I don't need to ovulate because, we're good, right? Which makes sense, because the initial research on the pill was it was supposed to be a fertility drug. The doctor who developed it was treating women with infertility. And as the case with all of the best drugs, the drugs that have changed our life, changed our world, changed our culture, we were trying to invent something else or trying to help with some other condition, and we noticed the side effect of this drug we were developing was really helpful in something else. Like Viagra. It was a heart drug, and then people figured out yeah. But that was the moment I began to really key in to what was the Republican strategy. The Republican strategy is to redefine the definition of pregnancy, redefine the definition of abortion, redefine everything so that any method of birth control of any kind, any non-barrier method anyway, is considered an abortifacient. They're trying to rewrite science. They're rewriting, destroying democracy in order to strip women of the right to choose and the right to access birth control, the right to access health care. That was the Urban Decay all-nighter powder, by the way. So then I realized, hey, if they're telling us that a woman is pregnant at conception, what does that mean? That means that any birth control device or method that prevents a fertilized egg from shutting up shop on the uterine wall is, in their mind, considered an abortion. And that is one of the many facets of the plan. And when you hear the way that pro-life folks talk about abortion, the way they talk about women, the way they talk about conception, it all becomes really clear to you what they're doing. Just as is the case with shitty men, just let them talk. All you have to do is listen, and you'll find out exactly what they're up to. This is the Haus Labs bronzer in Deep Level 9. And this is an amazing bronzer brush. This is the Sephora number 88 bronzer brush. And it seems crazy when you first think about it, because you're like, how could these people who are doctors and scientists themselves, how could they deny science to this great of a degree? It's simple. Because a certain segment of the population was appalled, devastated, insulted, and always will be very uncomfortable with the idea of separating sex from reproduction. And that's what birth control as a concept does. It says, hey, you can have sex, enjoy it without the consequences of pregnancy. And that's something a certain segment of the population will always be uncomfortable with. All-nighter setting spray. Urban Decay. Understanding the end game with these types of folks is the key to understanding the tactics. So once you know what they're really after, once you know what they're really, really trying to do, it all becomes clear. And then you can develop a plan, whether you are an activist, a legislator, or whatever. Then you can develop a plan on how to fight it. Haus Labs PhD Lip Oil in the color Primary, which is kind of like a sheer pink. Here's the final look. And that's the tea on the story of how I went to the FDA back in 2025 and saw a big bucket of crazy, all with MD behind their name.